Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Write Pack. Welcome back to Write Pack Radio. This is your host, David Allen Lucas, author of science fiction, mystery and suspense, and horror. And with me today is my co-host,
Kathleen Kayembe, writer of paranormal romance and urban fantasy under the pen name Kaseka and Vita, and Strange Person.
Brad R. Cook, author of steampunk and other historical fun stuff. But my novel Iron Horseman is out there. Please check it out. Thanks.
Fedora Amos. I'm president of Greater St. Louis Sisters in Crime, and I write Victorian whodunit set in St. Louis in 1897, like Jack the Ripper in St. Louis.
I'm Melanie Planey, writer of science fiction, fantasy, and nonfiction.
My name's Jennifer Stolzer. I'm a children's book author and illustrator. Check out Dog Park on Amazon. Self-published by me. Search me in Dog Park. You find it.
Meredith Tate, author of speculative YA and new adult. My debut novel, Missing Pieces, comes out next week.
Yay!
2 weeks ago, then.
Yeah. By the time this airs,
March 3rd. So whenever you want, this will be out March 3rd.
Being in the past is hard.
It's confusing.
Well, that was a surprise twist. And talking about surprise twist, today we are going to talk about twisted surprises in fiction. Now, I will warn our audience, I swore I would never do another alert notice, but this is a better one. This one that's not going to get me jumped for giving warnings. This is a spoiler alert. It is quite possible, knowing how we ad-libbed this entire interview anyway, that we could spoil movies and books that have just come out, or they have been out, or anything you may have not seen or read. So, you are hereby warned.
We will do our best not to spoil movies that have come and books that have come out recently, like in the last 10 years.
And can we say that a blanket statement that if somebody is going to talk about something with a spoiler, that you say spoiler before you start talking?
We're going to forget.
The idea is,
I'd like to lay down a blanket spoiler alert, everyone.
That's exactly it. We're alerting you now, there are spoilers. And with that said, why are twists and surprises so important to fiction?
I'd like to bring up a key one in movies, just to discuss what the twists are that we're talking about. M. Night Shyamalan, Sixth Sense. Mm-hmm. There is a gigantic twist in that movie, but that now everybody knows, and they're like, oh, well, he's a ghost. Everybody knows that. No. Nobody knew that when they first saw the film. And the twist comes as such a shock because you, the viewer, have gone through the film thinking everybody's alive except these ghosts that this child sees, but all the main characters, the narrator characters, are living people. The twist happens when you discover, near the end of the film, that one of the narrator characters who you've been following the entire film, who you have seen, you think, interacting with other living characters, is actually a ghost.
And here's the thing that's the best. Once you rewatch that movie, you realize you never see another character talking to him except the little boy.
Exactly.
And you don't realize it the first time through because of skilled camera work.
And the way the scenes are set up. There's a scene where the boy comes home and the actually a ghost man is sitting across from the boy's mother in a chair. And it's like the conversation has just ended. That is the supposition I made when I saw it. Mm-hmm. And I realized upon finding out he was a ghost that every conversation I assumed he had was only an assumption on my part because of the way the film was shot.
Well, I will admit that's an awesome film. There are tons of great ones, and the reason why they're great, and to answer your question, David, is pretty simple that it's about surprises. And why surprises? Because as we read through, and you're reading a couple of hundred pages, we all form expectations. we all see story arcs. We're kind of trained at this point from
Writers
young
are.
kids. Even the average Joe, who's just a reader and observer. They've seen so many movies. They all know the action hero is probably not going to die. That's not really a surprise to anybody. However, when you do throw a surprise at somebody, that shock of being, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, is probably the most memorable thing you'll ever do as a writer. And I say that because, we're all sitting here and we're going to talk about a ton of them today. And to be honest, what do we remember most about these movies? I mean, what do you remember most about... And books.
Yeah,
but what do you remember most about, The Sixth Sense? You remember that twist at the end. I don't really remember everything about that movie other than it's Bruce Willis and it's Haley Joel Osment and a few other things. I mean, I remember a lot, but what I remember most is that twist.
I wanted to point out that, we're talking about The Sixth Sense as being an awesome twist, but M. Night Shyamalan nowadays has a reputation of throwing in really stupid twists.
It's a twist.
That aren't effective.
A twist?
And
It's a robot chicken joke.
Is a twist.
Okay.
What a twist!
Yes, what's a twist?
But the difference between his old twists and his new twists is that the old ones, like The Sixth Sense, as Kathleen was saying, they made sense within the context of the film, and the evidence was there for it. We just didn't notice it until the pieces fell together. As opposed to, let's say, what's our least favorite? The Happening? The twist on that one was stupid, because it's plants. It's plants the whole time. Yes. They hate us. We didn't talk to them enough. And now they decided to kill us with wind. Yes. And that's not how nature works. It doesn't make sense, and it's stupid, and I got mad at it because of those reasons. We had this assumption going in that the movie was going to make sense, and then when the twist came in and made it not make sense, then that is what generally considered would be a bad use of a twist.
Right.
And in The Village, they should have at least thrown something at us that made us go back and say, oh, they were in modern day. Hearing a horn off in the distance, or even a car drive by or something.
Yeah.
The Village, yes. I was trying to think of that one. Yeah.
I don't know the name. Yeah. But yeah, the twist in that was...
The twist is that it's supposed to be set in, colonial days, and it ends up being modern day.
They did some other bad stuff in that movie, too.
Yes.
I've never seen it, but I've heard that it's just not...
It's got its flaws, we'll put it that way. It has a good premise that then executes a little bit half.
You want a good one? The Crying Game.
Yeah. Okay,
I was talking about how we were just talking about kind of what do you remember about a book or a movie. So the book We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. So this book, I believe it's a New York Times bestseller, but it's super popular right now. And what's funny is that if you go on Amazon, go on Goodreads, all the reviews, what's the first thing they say? Oh my gosh, twist ending, what's the twist? Twist ending, twist. That's all the reviews. They don't talk about the characters or the plot as much, but everyone remembers that twist ending and everybody's talking about it. And that book is doing super well. And I admit, that's what drew me to it, was people talking about that there was a twist in it.
One of the things about... Let me take a step back, and I'm going to throw this back out to you guys and let you guys attack it like lions who haven't been fed for a while.
You liked The Happening, didn't you?
No, I did not. I actually haven't seen it, so...
I want to see
it's
it now.
plants!
Sounds like Body Snatchers. Okay, moving on. Where I was going with this. Two things about... Actually, let's restart. You threw me off track. I love you.
Sorry,
anyway.
I apologize.
Okay. I know with a lot of us outwriters out there, I'm guilty. I think everybody at this table is guilty. I could be wrong. We spend a lot of time on our beginnings of our story. Why? Because that's what the agents see. And we're constantly repeating them. Because really our endings are very critical in how we handle it. The endings have got to pay off everything. You've got to basically close off all your conflicts. Or unless you're going to have a story arc over many books, but then you still have to have a closing.
Or you decide you don't care.
Yeah. But what's really hard to do, I think, is to make it a surprise ending, but yet inevitable. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to say is, with your twists and your turns and everything else to bring up your ending, there's really three kinds of endings. There's the ironic, there's the on the upswing, and then there's on the downswing over tragic. And how you handle your twists and turns is what's going to determine how this goes. So, out to you guys. Brad?
Well, I was just going to throw out, since we're talking about twist endings, There's actually a good one at the end of Missing Pieces here.
Oh.
So, check out Meredith's book because it actually does have kind of a nice little twist there at the end. My book does not have a twist. I did not twist it at the end because I'm running a series. And not that you're not. More so that I stretched it out and I introduced the next thing. As you said, kind of the up ending. Mm-hmm. But I just want to throw out that kind of difference there because she does have a great twist at the end.
Thank you.
Hey, no worries.
Love you.
It's a good twist.
Well, I'd like to talk for a moment about one of the most ideal surprise endings that I have ever come across. It is a classic story, a classic short story by Shirley Jackson, and you know that I'm talking about The Lottery.
Yep.
Yeah. That story scared me. All through like
By the
junior
way,
year. Yeah.
I read her novel last year, the one in the attic. I can't remember the full name of it. It is scary as heck. Anyway,
Not
continue
Flowers
on.
in the Attic, was it?
No, that's scary for a different reason.
Well, in this story, of course, we have all kinds of
Twisted
expectations which begin with the title itself of The Lottery. The lottery is always a good thing, isn't it? I mean, we can put in our $2 and get the ticket and hope for the lottery, hope that we win it, hope that the money is there for us. But this isn't that kind of lottery.
No.
We find out too late.
Much too late.
But we don't like that character
But
anyway.
it's a shock.
That's really fun. That's really funny. You don't like that character, and yet you're kind of scared
Now,
by
in the
ending.
movie, I saw them. I forget who did the movie. I don't remember if we read the short story in class or not. But in junior high, I remember in class seeing it wasn't a whole big movie, but the short movie, The Lottery. And there she was the person that won the lottery. I guess we're not spoiling this, but the person that won the lottery was one of. Okay,
It's been around for a long time.
Yeah, it definitely
We read it in
passes the
seventh
10-year
grade.
rule.
Oh yeah,
The
definitely.
one who wins the lottery gets sacrificed.
Stoned to death, by the way.
Yes.
But in the movie that I saw, it was like one of the townspeople, a mother of town, and she wasn't. There was nothing to make her especially lovable, but she wasn't especially unlovable. She was an average townsperson.
Except for the fact that when she was picked, she started saying, well, why can't my kid be picked? Like, why can't do that? I was like, what? That was so weird. She was like saying, like, oh, I want my adult daughter to be put at the lottery. As if like, why am I being killed?
Oh, that was different than in the movie.
Oh, yeah, that happens in the story, and I was like, what are you talking about?
Please go die now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, I'm going to play with, and this was a book and a movie. The book was restricted from being published until the movie came out. And I'm going to go back in time to Catch a Thief. The movie was directed by Alfred Hitchcock, the master of twists and suspense and surprise. In the book, in the movie, they have similar endings. There's a difference in them, and I would recommend reading the book as well. You won't lose anything by having seen the movie. But the main character, Roby, I just forgot his first name. Anyway, he is a farmer cat burglar. And he got in with the French resistance during World War II and then became a new man, basically, out of that. Still had lots of money, hey, you know. But now someone's
And
going
played by the very suave Cary Grant.
Oh, yes, very much so. And throughout the movie, somebody is imitating his crimes. Imitating his process of how he committed these crimes. One man he's accused of it. They're constantly following him. And then another man gets accused of it, gets killed. There's no way this man could have done it because he had a prosthetic. You can't run across rooftops with a prosthetic. You might nowadays. That's a whole... We're talking about, this is just right after World War II. Different type of prosthetics. And throughout the entire movie, you're trying to figure out who actually did it. And it turns out is this girl who had a crush on him, but also blamed him for a lot of things, and had learned from him how to do these crimes. And she confesses as she's hanging by his fingertips off the edge of a roof. And tiles are falling and so forth, and just check it out. But you see the lead up. If you watch the movie from beginning to end, back again, once you know the ending, you can catch all of the hints that you missed
What was the name of that movie? It's much more recent. I think it was The Magician, or it was The
Prestige.
It was either The Prestige or The Illusionist. You can pick
no.
your favorite.
No.
Now You See Me.
Yeah.
Now You See Me. This was
Now You See Me is such a good movie. I love it.
Yes.
That is
and by the way,
fantastic.
I won't say what happens in it because anything could
came
be
out
a
like
plot
last
hole.
year.
But I will say this one thing: there are no plot holes in it. While I was watching it, I was thinking, "Oh, that is so unlikely." No, how did they get that to work? But everything was tied up. There are no plot holes, and knowing that there's no plot holes, it's clear who everything is clear. But I was just thinking it was sloppy movie writing. But nope, everything worked.
Well done.
So I have 2 points to make. One that I found interesting is the book My Sister's Keeper by Jodi Picoult. She's a great New Hampshire author, but so her book, My Sister's Keeper, was made into a movie, and the book has this really awesome twist in it, and the movie, they changed it. So I found that kind of interesting. Why take the twist out in the movie? And so I'm kind of wondering, is there a reason why a twist could hurt a plot that would make somebody want to avoid them in their writing, or is there something...
take away from the happy ending?
Or try to do anything. I don't know how.
Because movies love a happy ending.
They're both kind of tragic.
Yeah.
So, did it complicate things and the story was more straightforward without the twist?
Yes, the story was more straightforward.
In the movie, you have less time to tell the story, so sometimes they simplify things. So that
That's
could be
true.
the reason.
I think there's also the effect that, it's a twist ending. For instance, last night, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Point is that I saw the remake of Total Recall for the first time.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
No?
I mean, it's a silly cyberpunk action flick, but it was cool. But the ending of the Schwarzenegger movie and the ending of the new one are different.
Oh yeah.
And
There's a twist ending.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure they did that because they assume everyone had already seen the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that was coming to see the remake. So they changed it so that they're not sitting there watching the same movie over again. There's actually a surprise for the audience who is anticipating the twist ending by changing what the twist was.
I kind of miss the giant Martian society, though. I'm not
I was surprised there was no
new
Mars.
version. I liked the new version, but go ahead.
But that's I guess that would be a happy ending twist, the original. Mars gets an atmosphere, sweet.
But it was it had me guessing when you technically shouldn't have been guessing. I'm like, oh, is this real? Is that real? I don't know.
One of my favorite woven in, plot twists that you'll see is actually Fight Club, and the book does it well, and then the movie did it really well. But there yet again, you don't know what's happening until the end, and then when you go back through it, you see it. You see they're never in the room together. You see that people treat them differently, that they treat them the same, I should say. So that I love. But anyway, I had to throw out Fight Club.
Meredith?
Oh, me?
Yeah, you. Twist.
Oh, and that's a down twist, too. On the landing,
down twist,
instead of an up twist, it's a down twist.
Go to Kathleen's. I just forgot what I was
Oh, actually,
Whoops.
Well, I was going to...
That's all right.
Oh, no. Well, one of my favorite movies with a twist ending is The Usual Suspects.
Yes.
That movie is brilliant and engaging and fun and rollicking and also kind of tragic. Kaiser Soze. He is a myth. He is a mythical person, mythical mobster, but nobody is alive who has seen him except one man who is in a hospital, either in a coma. Is it a coma? He was in a coma. And the police are trying to figure out what this man knows when he wakes up from the coma. And as this man is in a coma, we're seeing a police interview from
the interrogation.
The only man to survive this crew that went on board that ship where the comatose man ended up injured. The only man to go on there and come back out alive except for this comatose man is being interviewed by the police. And as he's spinning out the story, the man in the coma wakes up, and the police sketch artist goes in, and the story's still spinning out, and we're still trying to figure out, is Kaiser Soze actually real? And the police interview concludes, no, he's a myth, and he lets the only other survivor go. And as the only other survivor is limping out of the police station, the police sketch finishes and is faxed over to the police department. And as the limp is smoothing out into a normal walk, proving that this person is not who we thought he was, the police sketch is getting passed around the station to the man who is interviewing this person who was innocent, but the sketch is his face. Mm-hmm. And suddenly everything becomes clear as you're looking at the police board, and everything around the room has factored into this long, clearly fictional story that this suspect was spinning out. And one of the brilliant things about this twist is that it made everything that had happened in the movie come into question. Everything that this character had said, you were not sure how much was real and how much was false. And you had also been following a character who had been living a lie so that you could not tell ahead of time that this limp was not real. Kaiser Soze was real. The greatest trick the devil, or Kaiser Soze, ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. That's why that twist worked for me. Why do twists work? What do they do to you?
And how do you see how awesome Kevin Spacey was?
Yes.
And how do you, when you're writing whatever you're writing, handle those twists?
Well, a twist is, unless you, Meredith, if you remembered what you were going to say.
I did. It's just kind of not related now, but I still kind of want to say it.
Okay, say it, and we'll go back.
Okay, so one of my favorite books, and I think it's a great example of literary sci-fi, but Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I butchered that name. But so what
Which, by the way, he doesn't like to claim that book as sci-fi. He's
That's
a genre-ist.
But so what I like, the interesting thing about this twist is that it's so subtle, and it's not at the end. You find out kind of halfway through, and I think I could ruin it because it's been around, it's a classic now, but so it's these three kids who kind of grow up in this boarding school, and everything seems really good, and they're friends, and it's in England, and you find out kind of halfway through the book that they're actually clones, and that they're going to die when they're in their early 20s because their organs are going to be essentially harvested for the people who they were cloned from, or for other people in the society, and it's so dark, but it's like you become attached to the characters, and I think that's why it was so effective for me, because by this point, we've already become attached to the characters, and we've already kind of followed their lives, and that's kind of such a weird twist for me, is that, wow, kind of everything we thought about this boarding school and these kids is completely different.
Well, I can bring that back to Kathleen's point. That twist would no longer surprise me, because I've seen that done so many times now.
And it has now.
It's
like
been
the
done.
Island,
Island, one of my favorites, would be... Oh gosh, sorry, I can't even say it. There's a Mystery Science Theater episode that ripped that off.
But like I said, this book is a few years old.
Yeah. No, the point is that the twist worked so well in the original because it was unexpected. But nowadays, if the twist was their clones being harvested by rich people for their organs, they go, "Oh, this again."
Well, that goes back to the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
I mean, the Trojan horse is probably the original twist ending. If you think about it, they smuggled the guys in through a statue and took over the town. Yay. But that worked once, and yes, we have fallen back on it again and again and again. They even did it in World War II, technically, when they dropped the spy into the waters with the false paperwork in on it. And it's been used in literature countless times. Like, how many times has insert sci-fi show here. Gone, how are we going to do this? Oh, let's go back in the Trojan horse because they've never experienced that before and it'll work this time. That's happened in, every sci-fi. But yeah, to your point, you can only use the twist once.
A great example of reusing a twist over and over again until it gets really boring is the Silent Hill franchise. The Silent Hill game franchise, the first Silent Hill game was notable because it was doing new things with the genre. There wasn't a whole lot of like legitimately horror themed games on next gen platforms back when the first PlayStation came out. So it was like Silent Hill, Resident Evil, and not a whole lot else. So the first game, while I'm not going to say the plot was the strongest, it was notable for that reason. The second game is largely received as the best of the whole set.
Most definitely.
Because it's the best plot. And that's the first time that Silent Hill employed the unreliable narrator. You're surprised at the end to find out that the guy you've been playing as this entire time isn't who he seems. And he's just as surprised as you are to find that out, which is kind of the cool part. But after that, everyone looked back and said, Silent Hill 2 was the good one. We'll do that again. So the next game we can give Silent Hill 3 kind of a pass. But if we're going to get into like the American-made ones... There's like Silent Hill Origins, unreliable narrator. Silent Hill Homecoming, unreliable narrator. The remake of the first one that they made for the Wii that was terrible. I was an unreliable narrator. At this point, when you start a Silent Hill game, you just assume that the narrator isn't who he seems to be. And so now we're totally bored, because there's nothing to discover, because we know that everything he learns is going to be futile. Like, anything we learn about this guy doesn't mean anything, because in the last act we're going to find out that it's all wrong.
If we're talking about video games, we got to talk about KOTOR. Great twist ending.
Yep.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Okay.
I don't know that one.
It's a Star Wars game.
It's a Star Wars game.
No,
That's BioWare, isn't it?
Yeah.
BioWare knows how to write a good story.
Oh, they do.
Well, so far we've been talking about endings. And that is, of course, the primary spot where you want to have a good reversal, a good change, and a good shock. But let's not underestimate the value of having surprises and something new and something wowie happening in the middle, as Meredith referred to.
Wowie.
I would take an example of another Alfred Hitchcock great, North by Northwest.
Yes.
As Cary Grant goes into an art auction, and he is trying to get away from the people who are trying to kill him. And they've been doing this for a while. He ducks into the art auction, and they're there, for goodness sake. And how does he get out of it? By bidding, but in a strange way that is very funny. When they're bidding $100,000, he bids $127. And so he changes the mood and everything else about the piece that it's simply delightful. And you wonder, what next? What wonderful surprises are in for us next?
Let me just quickly follow that up with another Alfred Hitchcock. Not quite so funny, Vertigo. In the story, Jimmy Stewart is a cop who has vertigo after having chased a crook over some rooftops, and one of his police, it wasn't his partner, but it was a police cop, fell off a roof into his death. Well, he's hired by this woman by a friend of his to follow what is supposed to be this guy's wife, to keep her from committing suicide based on some type of belief she was someone else. The woman commits suicide, and okay, that was the twist. There's like, wait a minute, I'm trying to stop her, and suddenly she does do it. Then the next twist, which is the ending twist, is it turns out it was another woman dressed up as the wife, and somebody who Jimmy Stewart falls in love with. And we won't tell you how exactly it ends.
Well, two things. One about that. Yeah, another Alfred Hitchcock. He's good at twist. Psycho.
Yes.
The heroine doesn't die in the final act. She dies halfway through the movie. But there is a book that came out fairly recently called The Girl with All the Gifts. And it's a... let's call it a zombie book. But it's a zombie book in a different way. And it's new enough, I'm not going to spoil it. But it has twist endings. The main character is a little girl that's a genius. And... it's not a big spoiler to say that she's also a zombie. I mean, infected with the zombieism virus.
I think another TV show that really embodies the twist ending is Twilight Zone. And every single episode ends in a twist. And I think one of my favorite twists in general is kind of like the setting isn't what we thought it was. And there's a great episode of the Twilight Zone where there's this old woman sitting in her cabin, and all of a sudden these like scary aliens come in. There's 2 aliens in spacesuits, and they're very small, and they're basically harassing her, and she's going crazy, and she's trying to kill them, and they're chasing her, and all this stuff happens, and then at the end you find out that the 2 little aliens, she finally kills them, 2 little aliens were actually humans, and they were actually coming, and they're on another planet, and the older woman who killed them was actually the alien. And so it's stuff like that, like, always gets me. In Twilight Zone, you always know there's going to be a twist, but to me, they still get me. I still don't always know what
because you don't know what the twist is.
Yeah.
They don't use the same one every time.
Exactly. They vary it up, which to me was super effective.
The art of twists.
Yes.
Surprising but inevitable. Go ahead, Jen.
What was your original question, Fedora? You were asking...
I was saying
twist in the middle.
I was just saying that surprises are always good stock for writers, and they are especially important when it comes to beats. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But
well, you can go ahead. And I was just going to try and focus us back to that. We went back to endings. It's like talking about how in the middle and how things get boring if you don't twist something.
Well, we keep talking about the master of, the twist there is, but I would actually throw out Agatha Christie as being one of my favorites. And one of the ones I love is it's Death on the Nile. And the reason I bring up Death on the Nile is that it just like you're mentioning, you have surprises throughout. So it leads you down one track that it's this person. And then, oh, no, halfway through, it can't be that person. So now we got to flip it up, who is it now? And then you get that. And you get that actually a couple of times as they roll through everybody on the boat. And, I agree. And I think that by throwing out these surprises, by giving them to the reader, by not just having it at the end, it's one way of creating that roller coaster kind of ride.
Oh, I thought of my example. I remembered it.
Go for it.
Example of using a twist at the very beginning for good effect. I recently went to the Fox Theater, which is a stage in town, to see Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, which I've watched since I was old enough to understand the English language. And so you go in, you know the music, everyone knows the story of Cinderella. The first thing they do is bring out a man dressed as a mantis monster. I wasn't expecting that. That was a twist. But what did that successfully do? What's going to happen in this story of Cinderella if we open with a mantis monster? Suddenly I was interested to know what happened next, whereas before I was going in to see my favorite, the greatest hits of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, see the songs that I love performed by people in pretty costumes. That was what I thought I was going to see. Instead I got a political drama about a guy who kills mantis monsters and bringing democracy to fairy tale land. I didn't expect that. Good job, Cinderella.
Interesting.
So that's a twist. The twist is there to keep us guessing and keep us interested, because as soon as we become complacent, we get bored and we lose interest.
Another thing I was going to bring up about twists happening all through is Game of Thrones. And George R. R. Martin threw in so many twists, especially with character deaths, that it's to the point where you don't know who's going to die. It could literally be everyone. Anyone. It could be the main character, it could be the love interest, it could be the villain, it could be anybody that's going to die at any moment. And to me, that keeps the show really interesting, because I never know who's going to die. I never know what's going to happen. And that, to me, all through the show, all 4 seasons, and I'm sure season 5 is going to be the exact same way.
Well, he just announced that season 5 is going to tick off everybody.
Oh, great.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Babylon 5 was another one where none of the main characters were safe. Anyone could die at any time. Now, at least for him, at least that show, they were going to die for a good reason that served the plot.
We can only hope.
Game of Thrones is shock value, but
the
that's
plot
okay.
always morphs and changes in a George R. R. Martin novel because of the deaths that happen. That's one of the beautiful things, because you've invested not only, time, but entire books to certain story arcs that then disappear in an instant because all those people just died at that wedding.
See, this is why I haven't gotten into Game of Thrones, because I don't need that level of insecurity in my life. I'm already trying to make it in this world. I don't need someone else.
I've already had to
you roll that
console Jen over a certain death of a certain character which she absolutely loved in
it hurts so
Babylon
good.
5.
Oh, crap.
Don't spoil for people.
Oh, crap.
I'm showing it to people.
Oh, sorry.
And you're upsetting them.
Sorry.
It's for a good
Spoiler
cause.
alert.
Just shut up about
Now
Babylon
one of
5.
us has been spoiled, and you're all on notice. You, specifically, David, are on notice. All right. I wanted to talk about twists and premises. There is something I absolutely love as a genre, and as a type of story, fairy tales. Fairy tales, mythology, adore it. And something that has been happening recently is the revamping of fairy tales into different stories. So Grimm, the TV show, the premise is a twist on what the Grimm fairy tales are. The Grimm brothers were not just, recorders and archivers and collectors of these fairy tales. They were actually paranormal investigators and basically sheriffs of the fairy tale creatures that actually exist that most of us can't see. And what made me think of this was Pretty Woman, when Jen was talking about Cinderella and how the mantis coming out on stage just shocked your mind into saying, what is going to happen next? I thought this was Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella.
It was an awesome mantis, too, by the way. The costume was done really well.
But Pretty Woman, the story is Cinderella.
Story is Pygmalion. But My Fair Lady.
Cinderella specifically.
Yeah, but it's more My Fair Lady.
Ever happen? Well, it's a collection of different things.
Yeah.
But Cinderella is what they refer to directly in the movie, and it's a rags to riches story. This prostitute is picked up by a rich gentleman and turned into a fair lady, as you say. But how it's going to happen is crazy, and you don't know because it's not Cinderella as we've been told it. It's something different. It uses twists and story pieces that have become tropes and turns it into something entirely new. So, what about twisted premises?
Well, two things. One, Wicked is awesome, and a great twist on The Wizard of Oz. And then two, actually, this is a big thing right now. Manuscript wish list was a thing on Twitter, hashtag MSWL. And actually, one of the things a bunch of agents were requesting were the twists on current fairy tales. So if you have them now, send them off. If you're writing them now, finish quickly. But yeah, so it's definitely a big thing. And as we could mention a dozen different fairy tales that have been twisted up like crazy. If you're watching Once Upon a Time on ABC. It's a huge thing right now, but I just wanted to mention that it was a big part of manuscript wish list.
It's also what every editor and every agent wants. At least so I've heard. The same but different.
Yep.
Right.
I think that's part of what makes twists so effective, and I think that's part of how they relate to the unexpected yet inevitable ending and story conclusion thing that David has brought up. With a twist, it does need to be inevitable because there need to have been clues along the way.
Oh, and Agatha Christie, and Then There Were None. I think that's the name of the short story.
Yes, no, it's a novel.
It's a novel.
Oh, novel. Okay,
Novel or novella.
Novella, but it's not that long. But
yes, but
yeah,
It's a couple hundred pages, isn't it?
yeah.
Sorry,
There
listen to
needs
the audiobook.
There needs to be foreshadowing.
Right.
There needs to be enough.
You have to show the twist. You have to show the twist coming at some point.
It needs to make sense, is the point.
Because that's the point of a twist, is the beauty part of being able to go back through and finding the clues that have been hidden. And, and I think that prevents the twist that comes out of nowhere.
Right.
Which I don't think effectively works as well.
And I think that comes from rewriting. When I don't know about anyone else here at the table, but I'm getting back into the how do you do it aspect of it. If I'm writing a first draft and I suddenly come up with a different ending than I thought it would be, I definitely need to go back and rewrite and put in all that foreshadowing somewhere to bring it down and to tie up everything in a good, hopefully satisfying, not necessarily happy, but satisfying way.
Because I think if if it does come too far out of left field, it can be too almost Deus Ex Machina. But
like a convenient car accident.
Yes, convenient. And I think that that one author who I think does this very well is Gillian Flynn. And I won't talk about Gone Girl, but there's a great twist in that. But Dark Places, the whole answer to everything was basically she gave away in one sentence in like chapter 1 or 2. And when I got to the end, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" But I already knew that twist existed. But the fact that it was such a big part in the story after we only got one sentence of it in the beginning, like I loved that. To me, that was so cool.
We're talking about how do you put in twists. So there is a twist in Iron Zulu, which is the sequel to Iron Horseman. And I've just been writing it in that particular scene, so this is kind of funny. But anyway, it's actually the first things that you'll actually get the allusion to this twist, or the references to this twist, actually occur in book 1 in Iron Horseman. I purposely put them in Iron Horseman, knowing what I would do in Iron Zulu, so that when you go back and read through it, there's a continuous story arc that's going to lead to this twist that comes up in the middle, actually. The kind of, I guess, the first third of the book is when, maybe like halfway, is when this twist occurs in Iron Zulu. Okay. And then I don't really twist it at the end, as much. I don't really have the twist ending, mostly because I write adventure novels, which are kind of fun and a little bit more formulaic, I guess. They gotta have the happy ending. It is kind of fun, and I do have those things. Like I was just actually going through making certain that everything leading up to the reveal is in there. So certain things are done certain ways, certain people aren't in certain scenes, so that you can go back and be like, well, why didn't they know that then? Well, because nobody knew. Nobody was in that room who knew.
Yeah, I know. Now I want to go back and reread it.
Yes.
And got to find out what this
twist is. I'm writing the first draft of my fantasy novel now, and I think I do twist a slightly different way than David. My characters, at least the main ones, have backstory. And they have
Burn, David!
Wow, man, all my characters.
Now we're out on the table.
Sorry.
Wow.
Sorry, he also has backstory, but the point is they have secrets.
Nice attempt to save. Failed. Moving on.
Point is, my characters have secrets in their backstories that either they don't know or not everybody knows. So, point is, the fact that they know it, and some
Jen.
people
I'm
are...
moving closer over to you now. At least where I'm semi-loved. Okay.
The point I'm trying to make...
Sorry, Mel.
is people going through, I already know things that, basically secrets from other people, and if they come out in the story, and I actually haven't decided if they're going to or when they're going to, that would be a twist, because it would change how you would think about these characters.
If you want to talk about how to structure a twist, like if you're writing a story that you know you want to have a twist ending, if you have a character that's going to be, let's say, twisted, twisted at some point, he's a Benedict Arnold or whatever, and he's going to come out and be like, hey, I was working for the bad guys the whole time, you jerks. Well, you have to know that yourself as an author beforehand.
Right.
But then we get into the argument of plotting versus pantsing. If you are pantsing your novel, and suddenly you realize this would be really awesome if the best friend actually worked for the bad guys, then it's your responsibility as an author to go back into the previous section of the novel and look and see if there was any time in which your own twist is foiled by the events that took place.
Thank you, Jen. Yes.
So,
most definitely.
It's either plan that ahead, but if you're not a planner, then make sure that you're not going to piss everybody off whenever they say, oh, I don't remember what book it is, so it won't spoil anything.
Well, and here's the thing on that. You have to do it as the author, because there's no guarantee that your editor is going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
The editor is going to read through. They're not going to read through tons and tons of times to catch everything like that. So they're going to love the twist. They're going to focus on that twist moment. But there's no guarantee they're going to go back and check all of that. So that's really on the author.
Especially if your twist is in book 2 and you needed the setup in book 1.
Well, if we're talking about beats in a story arc...
This took a while.
I hope. If we're talking about beats in a story arc, nobody does it better than a good Disney movie. Take Frozen, for example. One thing that you do need, I think, before you push on to that big, dramatic black moment is something else. Something that will cause your reader, your watcher, to sit back, have a good time, refocus before you get up to that final emotional twist. So take, for example, in Frozen, and I'm not giving anything away, this is a fairy tale and they all have happy endings. Well, in this case, we have a funny scene as Kristoff takes Anna, who is already getting a frozen heart, to be mended by his love people, the trolls. And the trolls say that they can't mend her, but then what they want to do is to get the two married. That's their main goal. And so they sing a wonderful comic song called The Fixer-Upper, in which it has a wonderful message, too, that everybody is a little bit of a fixer-upper, and everybody can be the best that they can be with just a little fixing up by a good fixer-upper. And it's absolutely delightful, and I think it sets the stage at a nice, calm place where then you can pursue to the big, dramatic build-up with the blizzard and poor Anna being turned into ice and so on and so on.
I am charmed that you're such a fan of Frozen.
I am.
I was not expecting that from you. I thought you'd be like, Frozen, oh, that's that cute thing that the little kids watch.
And that's the moment that changed it for me, because until then they were singing these sweet little songs, little love songs. And it was kind of okay. But when we got to the Fixer-Upper, I fell in love with it.
Speaking of, that movie does a wonderful thing with gloves. the Tumblr has beautifully explained. And I highly recommend you go check
Praise
it out.
Tumblr.
It is. Gloves represent things that are hidden and secretive and not wanting to be revealed. And watch everyone in that movie who wears gloves.
Oh.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Including the villain.
Including the villain.
Now I
It's
have to go back
very,
and watch
very
it
good.
again.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking Shrek, another cartoon that has a twist ending that, okay, I saw that coming, but the little kids watching it probably didn't. So
No, that was that's taking again with like the twisted premise sort of thing.
yeah.
And I think that we've talked a lot about negative twists. I think the twist can also be kind of like heart-wrenching and positive. And thinking about the movie Up, and essentially we all know the story, but essentially he and his wife grew up together. They always wanted to take a trip to South America together. He finally buys the ticket and she dies. So they never get there. And she had given him this beautiful book. It was stuff I want to do, or stuff we've done, or something. And he's carrying this book around with him the entire movie, thinking that it's empty because he let his wife down, because he never took her to South America where he said he was going to go. And then we find out halfway through that she actually had filled it up, but it was with all the kind of average stuff that they did during their lives together, because she did think that they had full lives without doing this big elaborate thing that they had always thought. And to him, the main character, Carl, that's like a huge turning point for him, because he kind of is able to finally let go of the fact that he wasn't able to take her there in his life. And I thought that was really sweet.
Well, Fedora was talking about the beats in movies, or the beats in stories, not
Beats
just
in
movies.
stories, yeah.
Stories. But recently, the St. Louis Writers Guild hosted a workshop on screenwriting that they included the speaker included the basics on the points in a plot, the plotting of a screenplay. And I think it's called the second act. It's not the main climax. It's like sort of like the second act climax. And otherwise known as the place where mentors go to die. Sorry, I just saw a movie recently that, when I saw a certain place, like, oh, we're at the end of the second act now. Okay.
I think we've all seen a movie like that recently, because every movie does that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
Things
one
that
is
become
that's
tropes.
Yeah, that's the beat you're going for, and it doesn't have to be someone dying, but it very often is.
Elmore Leonard had something to say about that. He said that when you absolutely don't know what happens next and their book is getting really boring, have two men smash through the front door, guns blazing. And then he explained that to me. Not really, but that's the time for you to think totally outside the box, find some other direction, change things up, make a real separation from what you have been doing.
Exactly. The second act in anything is such a long walk through the desert. As somebody, I can't think what author said that, but I know I'm quoting somebody, and that is one way to put the oases out there, is have your twists. In terms, it keeps you fresh too.
I was going to talk a bit about writing twists. It's after the first act in the novel I'm writing, and there is a lot of foreshadowing going into the twist, because it hedges on a lie. The main character that interacts with this coven of witches has been told one thing, but as I'm writing it, I know that this coven has lied about this very key point to this main character. And while the character doesn't know it, the things that the coven does and the way that they treat her and the events that happen is certainly suspicious. So readers are alerted before the truth comes out, even to the extent that it does at that point in the novel, that something is not right. And I think that plays in, illustrates, there we go. I think that illustrates what it is that the writer needs to know going into a twist. You need to know that something is going to happen. You need to know the truth of the situation, and you need to be aware of how it's going to appear to the characters and to the reader. I think that's very important, and naturally you'll begin to foreshadow things if you know what's coming.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say when I insulted Dave. But
We're not talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just finished a book, and I can't remember the name of the book, but it's from the Bloodhound Files, and I don't remember the name of the author either. I'm sorry. But it's the last book of the series, and by the way, talk about it, never mind. Apparently a sequel was planned that didn't get written. But
It'll be found somewhere in some attic.
Lucian's library.
Don't worry.
Okay,
100 years, 25 years.
It turns out he didn't write that sequel. Go ahead.
Yeah, but
None of them have recently.
the point is, if I can remember it now,
Sorry.
in the book, the main character finds a dead body that she knows instantly she'll be the main suspect. And because she knows she's the main suspect, even though she had nothing to do with the death of this person, she wants to hide the death of this person. So she calls her best friend and asks him for help. She said, you know that expression that a good friend will help you move? It's like, yeah. Well, I need a really good friend. So the friend comes over, helps her move. He's just, a little bit, he doesn't even bother asking her if she did it. He's just, goes, does it, takes away the body and buries it, and somewhere you never see the body again. And he's just so helpful about that. And he's like, boy, he's just so helpful. And it just seemed kind of strange to me. And, yeah.
Did he do it?
Yes, he did it.
Oh.
Turns out he did it to protect her, but,
Oh, so they were protecting each other. He kills someone, dumps it on her so she knows that person's dead. She calls him for help.
No.
He helps her bury the body.
No, actually, he killed the guy, and then she happened to find the body, and when he realized that she found the body, he felt
obligated to help clean up his own mess.
Yes.
That was so nice of him.
Uh-huh.
And he never told her?
Well, she figured it out at the end of the book, but to be fair, she figured it out before he had a chance to tell her, given the circumstances of the story. But yeah. A lot of crazy things were happening.
It was a novel.
Yes.
They were protagonists, or she was.
She was, yeah.
Stuff happens to protagonists in novels that I don't think I would ever want to ever happen in my life or the lives of anyone I know.
And being a protagonist is terrible.
Troublesome times.
Well, the thing is, here's another thing. This was like in Chapter 2 that you found the body. Chapter 2, he was the chief bad guy of the entire story. You didn't know that when you found the dead body, but you found that later. That's another twist.
Let me ask everybody a question. I'm going to go around the table, so think about it, and I'm going to see who wants to volunteer the answer first, and we'll go around the table from there.
Brad,
movie.
You're going
This
first,
is an answer for
so
a movie and an answer for a book. Who do you think handles twists the best, in your opinion? Or who would you recommend somebody to go and read or watch that handles twists quite well?
So our favorite twist we've experienced?
Yeah,
Then?
maybe. Or one you got to gum to for a twist.
See, I've been trying to do that all day. I'll just through that this whole show, trying to figure out my favorite twist, and I cannot tell you my favorite because every time I try, I'm going to give you a list that's like a mile long. But I've actually mentioned him before, so I'll start. Okay. Since you wanted me to start anyway, so we'll go around. You'll be last.
Thank you.
Unless they go this way, then she's up next. But anyway, so I am a huge fan of the director Brian De Palma. He's done some great works like Snake Eyes and stuff like that. He has this thing of always kind of twists and turns, so you never really know what's happening next. Or he did Femme Fatale. He's done a ton of great movies. He's also done movies that don't have these twists and stuff in them, but he's really good at them when he does them. And he loves to put in little things. So check out the clock and what time it is. It's going to be something kind of interesting and weird. And you're going to pass by a sign. There's going to be something written on that sign that's kind of cool that relates to whatever's going on. He loves to put little Easter egg type stuff like that in there. And those are things that are fun. Surprises that are fun to go back and check out. But he has these great things of twisting it up. I'll throw out Snake Eyes just because I watched it not too long ago. But at the end, you spend the entire time realizing, seeing things from one angle. Then halfway through, you start to see them from the other angle, and in the end, you realize there's something else going on entirely. So,
well, I will take Agatha Christie for twists throughout in any kind of book. She's great. As for movies, let me go with the Coen brothers because they have twists that. It's not even that they're so unexpected, but that they're so strikingly weird that you gotta like them. Yes. I mean, it's this little tiny Holly Hunter out after this humongous guy with the bad teeth on a huge Harley, and she says, "Give me that baby, you warthog from hell!" And I loved it.
Okay. I was actually going to say Agatha Christie, but since that's already been taken, a very different type of twist, Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
That has a very different twist at the end, but just to point out that there are other twists besides mysteries. Alfred Hitchcock is very good with the twists, and there's a whole bunch of others. I mean, Twilight Zone, actually, that Meredith brought up, is very good with consistently doing twists that are surprising yet inevitable. Of course, they play with premises a lot. So.
Okay, book-wise, and in my case, I'm going to go back to mystery, but really depends on the translator, I think, on that, on how well this is carried over. Umberto Eco, Italian author. What was it? The Name of the Rose is definitely one where it's set in medieval times.
Yep.
A murder is occurring, and I will not give that away on this thing. It is a very interesting, twisted book, as well as the movie was twisted.
I was going to say, yeah, made in the movie.
Yeah. Movies-wise, I've already mentioned Alfred Hitchcock. He's a master. But Melanie, you mentioned one that I would have to agree with you, and that is And You See Me Now.
Now You See
Now You See Me. Now You See Me. Mm-hmm. Sorry. As I was watching that movie, it follows the rules of mystery, and it follows the rules of magic very, very well. And even knowing those, you can still get caught up in the twists and turns.
I've had a heck of a time listening to my previous presenters and trying to figure out what my favorite twist things were. I don't think I have. But I'll mention one of the twists that I love, and it's funny because I only really understood it when I got older. My favorite movie of all time is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So, the twist at the end of Willy Wonka is that Willy staged a track for everybody the entire time. The twist is that it's a test. The test is whether or not these kids are, number one, can keep their little grabby hands off all of his toys, and number two, are willing to not sell him out. Because he's trying to find someone to inherit the factory. And there are parts, like all of the crazy adventures you go on. He's even darker in the book, but I love him in the movie, specifically because I love Gene Wilder. But all the crazy adventures that they go on and the different rooms they go to, he set these traps for these kids specifically to relate to their flaws. And when you're watching it the first time, you're like, look at the crazy factory and all the cool stuff that you get to go see. And then weird stuff would happen. You're like, oh, that Willy Wonka, he's so odd. But at the end, when the twist is revealed, you realize that the entire adventure was carefully calculated all the way down to which kids he picked and brought into his factory. Specifically, I have a theory that specifically he wanted Charlie the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, he cherry-picked Charlie because he saw him looking through the gate every single day, and it's like, but I can't just give it to him. I have to bring him in and surround him by all these things and like, drive him crazy and everything. But as an adult watching the film, I realized exactly how deep the twist went. It's great because it's got subtle threads going through it. They're more obvious the more you think about them. But as a little kid, I just enjoyed the flashbang and the colors and everything. So that's one of my favorites, I guess.
So I'll just quickly say the same thing that I've been saying that everyone else already said. My favorites are Twilight Zone and Gillian Flynn.
Yeah.
For premise, I like Grimm the TV show. For films, I'd like to bring up The Maze Runner, which I finally saw last night for the first time.
Oh, Maze Runner.
I enjoyed the film very much. I haven't read the book, so I can't speak to that.
I
But
like the film better.
the film ending is not what the characters think it is. And it's brilliant. They're out of the maze finally. Spoiler. In The Maze Runner, when the point is to get out of the maze, they get out of the maze. But did they really get out of the maze? In movie! And for book, and then there were none. Because the twist came most shockingly to me when I was in 6th grade reading the book, and I had no idea when the story ended, when the story proper ended, who had done it, because everyone was dead. And then the letter at the end showed me, no, some of these characters were unreliable when I was reading over their shoulder, or seeing them interact with other people. One of the characters was not dead who should have been.
Or we thought was dead.
Exactly. And was orchestrating the whole thing. And that just...
Okay. I actually thought of my favorite while we were doing this. And I'm not going to spoil it because there are a lot of people who have Netflix and have not seen this yet, and the movie's coming out soon, so haha! But it is the greatest character reveal in all of cartoon history, and that would be gargoyles. And who out-Vogels Vogel is all I'm going to say about it. But it is the greatest character reveal and twist ever. So that is my favorite, and I hope they throw it in the movie.
I didn't even know they were making it into a movie.
They're making a movie.
I am horribly frightened.
Live action.
Oh my
Disney's
God.
making the movie.
Are they getting all the Star Trek characters
And they
to play
turned it
themselves?
over to Marvel to make it. So
Okay.
I'm hoping.
Hopes are rising.
Hopes
as long
are
as they
very
get
high.
Keith David back. Okay.
I am going to throw out one more great twist, and then I'm going to end this. And that is we're going to go back to Agatha Christie. But it's not the and then there were none. How about Curtain? This is where Hercule Poirot, the great detective throughout everything, commits murder. And on that, I want to say thank you for listening, and join us next time for yet another interesting talk about the writing industry. Have a good week writing. Thank you. The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her. The Right Pack would like to thank STL Books for allowing us to record in their bookstore. STL Books and Gifts is St. Louis's newest independent bookstore with an emphasis on fine literature for adults and children and the most comprehensive selection of St. Louis books available anywhere. Visit them online at stlbooks.com or in person at 100 West Jefferson Avenue, Kirkwood, Missouri 63122. Tune in next week as the Right Pack will conquer yet another pondering issue in the writing industry.